Hello and welcome back to another episode of Only a Bag, the guide to Italian travel. I'm Darcy Melton.
And I'm Nathaniel Mellor.
And thank you for joining us for another episode. This is going to be 2 mini-sodes, right?
I think so.
That's the plan.
That is the plan. So hold on to your horses. This might be 2 full-size episodes given the fact that we talk a lot.
Yes. So Nathaniel, you're going to be talking about the Rome Jubilee and the practicalities of travel, right?
I will be, yes, because it's our 60-something episode. I was really trying to plan this on our 50th episode, but man, we missed that by like 14 episodes. So not for our 50th episode, but for a random number 65, I think. We're going to be talking about the Jubilee in Rome basically starting into this year, and what it means for your trip, what it means for your traveling, practically speaking. Just some changes to expect, what to plan around.
Mm-hmm. And then in the next episode, I'm going to do a small dive, a little mini deep dive into the history of the Jubilee.
The kind of dive you're not allowed to do at a swimming pool.
Yeah. Right? In the deep end? You can dive in a deep end.
I know, but they always get grumpy at people who dive. They're like, actually, there's no diving. There's a sign there right there. I'm like, but I dove in the 8-foot end. They're like, no. You could have cracked your head and died, which is true. And you probably should not dive in a swimming pool.
Yeah,
but
safety first.
At the same time, this is the kind of dive we will be doing. So
Okay.
Wear a helmet and we'll be safe.
Wear your diving helmet.
Wear your diving helmet, which is kind of crazy. There's no diving helmets, right?
Is that crazy?
I don't know. I mean, there's probably a reason for it, but it still feels like they have a diving helmet.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't dive. I can't dive.
Good point. We don't have a pool. So, Darcy, tell us a little bit about the history of the Jubilee.
Okay. This is just a quick, so you know what we're talking about. Like I said, we're going to get more into it in the next episode. So, what is the Rome Jubilee? It is the holy year. It happens every 25 years. And it's the day when they open the holy door at St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. And you can go through the doors. Anybody can go through the doors and absolve your sins, according to the Catholic Church.
Absolutely love it.
So the Jubilee is a year-long celebration. It's actually slightly more than a year long, but we're going to talk about that next episode.
Ooh, already getting spicy little tidbits.
So it's a year-long. It's a big old celebration in Rome. It's obviously a Catholic celebration, but it's also like a whole citywide thing. Like there's concerts and they say exhibitions. I don't know what that means. I don't know if they know what that means. But yeah, it's a big old holy celebration where you get to absolve your sins if you go through the holy door.
And if I may jump in very briefly as you prepare to tell us a little more information, some of you listening might be thinking, wow, 25 years ago did not seem that long since I last heard about the Jubilee. And you're correct. The last Jubilee in Rome was actually 2015 to 2016, and we have the Metro cards to prove it. We were not there, but apparently 5 years. I think we got our monthly
they issued,
passes,
like the special Jubilee card.
Yeah, and I think in 2020 when we went, we got monthly passes that still had the Jubilee, like 2015 to 2016. So they printed a bunch of those monthly passes that clearly did not have a chance to get used. But yes, that is probably why you've heard about it more recently. Mm-hmm. But I think that was a special Jubilee.
Yeah, that was an extraordinary Jubilee is the word.
That's the word. Thank you. Extraordinary.
So popes can declare extraordinary Jubilees whenever they want to, basically.
But it's nice to do it on a nice even 5 number, I imagine.
Yes.
Like instead of 5 or 0, right?
Yeah. But this is the regularly scheduled Jubilee.
Okay. Back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
What else? So for this one, they're expecting 35, how many?
Million?
Yeah, 35 million. I was going to make sure it wasn't billion because that would be crazy.
And that'd be a lot of, that'd be
everybody.
Everyone in the world is going to come 3 times. If I may add in a little bit of perspective on the 35 million, the Vatican is expecting 35 million additional people to go to Rome. Mm-hmm. Italy, on average, gets about 70 million visitors a year. So this year they're expecting roughly 100 million visitors if things track as they have been. And one of the things I was trying to look up is just to give, again, you, our dear listeners, some perspective on how many people to really expect. Because we've all heard that, Rome's really packed and it's busy, especially around the Vatican, especially around the Colosseum, things like that. But unfortunately, COVID really did sort of throw a wrench into a lot of people's travel plans. I mean, into everything, but we're keeping it lighthearted. So only your travel plans got ruined. And no, it's interesting. So it's basically everyone who didn't come in 2020 and 2021. And I think Americans are allowed in like somewhere mid 2022.
I can't remember, but I think so.
Okay. Or maybe 2022 was the first year they were allowed in. But that is, so essentially like 2022 had a huge, I think it was something in Rome had like 18 million people in 2019, and also it's like 32 million people in 2022, something like that. It was something like basically everyone who didn't take a trip took a trip all at the same time. And unfortunately, Rome hasn't really gone back to normal, quote unquote. It's pretty much stayed at this like heavily inflated amount of travelers for the last what are we in 2024? So yeah, basically 2 years. So this is kind of one of the reasons, if you're in Rome now, or if you've just been to Rome, or if you visited at some point this year, 2024, you might have seen so many of those statues and fountains and basilicas and duomos and all sorts of things under construction. And that was because, they're realizing that you probably get it together for next year. So please, I apologize. Tell us some more about the history, if you will.
I don't know that I should. I think I should keep it all for the next episode.
That's so rude. Okay. So in the next episode, you're going to go more in depth in the history of the Jubilee.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything, like any sort of tidbit that you can give us that like kind of makes us, I don't know, like a little crumb, something to be like, ooh, that tastes really good. I want to come back for the next episode. How about like, is there something where the name of Jubilee came from you can give us, or when it started, or?
I can tell you that it has roots in Jewish tradition.
Okay.
Which is interesting. Catholics stealing everything.
Romans as well.
Yeah.
Big fans of that.
I can tell you that it started in 1300.
Okay.
I can tell you that the doors, which when we saw them, I was like, oh, look at these amazing ancient doors. You want to guess what year they're from?
I don't have to. I think they're from the 50s.
1948.
1948. Okay, because that was we were on the tour, and she mentioned they were from 48, and I was really blown away by the fact that, I guess, I don't know, it's sort of like just post-war, like their number one priority was,
let's make some doors.
Let's make some bronze doors. Like, feels kind of a little like, oh, interesting priority there. Cool. So
Is that enough?
I think
Do you feel excited for the next episode?
I'm excited. I want to know more about these doors. I want to know more about the tradition.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited. Okay. So before we get into the practical aspects of Rome, Jubilee, and what it means for you, just want to say thank you to everyone who is listening, who has listened to the previous episodes, and who has followed us. It means a great deal to us. It helps us tremendously. It makes us happy. If you'd like to also make us happy, you can click the follow button and you will follow us. You can leave a review. We would also be deeply appreciative of that. And yeah, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can shoot us an email, onlyabagpodcast@gmail.com, or you can send us a message on Instagram. We're at onlyabagpodcast. Likewise, if you like reading, I'm not sure that some of you might, because you're on a podcast, like, come on, pick a lane, right?
But if you're very diverse and you like listening and reading,
then you can go to onlybag.com and check out some of our articles. And last but not least, if you'd like to support the podcast or the lifestyle or whatever it is we do, talking to people through the microphones, you can do so. There are some affiliate links in the description for booking. If you're going to go to Rome next year, it is not a bad idea to go ahead and book your hotel, your Airbnb, whatever you're going to stay in.
Yeah, you need to book it like right now.
Yeah, and I know that we've talked in the previous episode, like 3 episodes ago, we talked about the best time to book your flights is actually sooner rather than later rather than sooner, which is technically true. And actually, I only know that because as a little experiment, I put a little price alert, and I'm watching the flight that we have already booked to Savannah actually getting cheaper by every day. Really? However, the good, quote unquote, the good times are all gone. So like the noon leave times, the 1 p.m. leave times that gets you in like Savannah at like 7 or 8 are all gone. So you either have to leave at like 6 a.m. or spend the night in like the JFK airport.
Amazing.
Yeah. So while technically still true, it is cheaper to wait. You will lose opportunities for like the most flexibility. And if you're traveling with a family or something like that, you might as well go ahead and book sooner rather than later. That all being said, those are in the description. If you'd like to help out the channel, you can use the affiliate link. No extra cost to you. We get a little amuse-bouche, if you will, from the affiliate company, from the company who we're advertising. and makes us happy. So, without further ado,
Oh, I have an idea though.
Yes.
If you want to be in Italy for longer and you want to just drive into Rome to see the Jubilee for a day, you could do a house sit potentially.
yes, you can.
So I think that would be a good idea. So can we put the trusted house sitters link
Yeah,
in the
if
description
you're
as well?
if you're interested in doing a good idea, if you're interested in doing a house sit, we've talked about that before in some past episodes. We've I think 4 or 5 episodes on house sitting. Essentially, you're taking care of somebody's cat, dog, potted plants, horses on some occasions. Which actually, if you can take care of horses, by the way, you'll have like every house sit available because there's like 4 people I think that know how to house sit and take care of horses. But if that's something that's interesting to you, yeah, we'll put a trusted house sitters link in the description. It's basically costs a few $100s a year, but house sitting is free. So you and I have done it, and it's essentially, I think it's like we pay $200 a year for the cheap plan, and we basically like reconcile it to ourselves because it's cheaper than 2 nights in a hotel.
Right.
And we had a month and a half long house sit in Rome. So it was like well worth the price of admission, so to speak. So yeah, that'll be in the description as well. Good looking out.
Thank you.
Yeah. So jumping into it, Rome Jubilee, what to expect. In the last episode, I think at the very end, we talked very briefly about one of the changes coming your way, look out for in 2025, is a potential fee tacked on to the Trevi Fountain. This is actually at the request of the police, interestingly enough. The police have found it really difficult to sort of not just patrol the area, but to keep the area safe, I guess is a good way to put it. And specifically, in 2017 is when they introduced the no frolicking in the actual tub of water part of the fountain.
You could do that before 2017?
You couldn't really. They would pull you out.
Okay.
But 2017 is when they enacted this pretty big fines for anybody reenacting the scene from, is it Dolce Vita? La Dolce Vita?
I think so, yeah.
Anybody who's trying to be like, oh, push me in the fountain, oh, frolic. I don't know. I have not seen the movie. I've seen pictures, so I'm not entirely sure what happens in the movie. But in 2017, after a lot of people kept basically pulling each other into the fountain or pushing each other into the fountain, they enacted these. I think it's like 250 or 350 euro fine, like flat fine. There it is. I'm pretty sure it's like the other fines in Rome or in Italy where you have to pay it in cash. If you cannot pay in cash, they will bring you to an ATM and you will pay in cash. Just keep that. We keep throwing those things out there just in case people don't listen to like the Rome episode or the Florence episode, and then they're like, I got fined and they wanted me to pay in cash. What kind of scam is this? That's just how Italy is done. They will make you pay in cash and they will follow you to an ATM. So in 2018, though, there's a fight between 8 tourists to get a for the selfie spot. There's like a selfie spot kind of in the front. Yeah, and the police had to break that up, but it kind of become a little violent. And when I say police, by the way, it's 2 regular police officers, no riot gear. They're just like, it's almost like two cops on their lunch break kind of vibe. And they do a pretty good job of like trying to keep you from sitting on the rocks and stuff. They have a little whistle and they'll whistle and point at you. But it's not a lot. It's not like this massive police presence. It's not part of the esterito, non so, like the safe streets, around all the Colosseum, the Altar of the Fatherland, a few other places. They have like the armed soldiers.
I see what you mean.
And that's, I think, since the 80s, I want to say. It's basically to keep all the heritage sites safe.
The ones who look like army people under the little tents.
Exactly, okay. Yeah.
With the big guns.
With the big guns. So it's not them that's at the fountain. It's just the regular police pull up in a car and like, excuse me.
They kind of look like traffic cops.
Very much
so.
Is the vibe, yeah. It's not a very non-threatening vibe. But they're basically like, we constantly are, it's too much for them to do. So they want to include, or will they introduce a fee, basically. And there's 5 roads, I think, leading to the Trevi Fountain. So I'm not sure, and they aren't sure either how they're going to do it. If it's going to be a turnstile thing, if it's going to be like ticket agents, if it's going to be they have no idea how they're planning on this. But they want to introduce something similar to what they've done with the Pantheon, which is just a nominal fee, except the Pantheon's like €5, which is not a nominal fee. You could see Venice for €5. That is a joke about how Venice charges €5, people. But they want to make it a €1 or €2 fee just for visitors. People who live in Rome can go for free. And that is kind of a sign, I think, of what are some things they're trying to change, like some things they're trying to introduce. That might be the only actual fee, but another fee that is related that will affect you, whether or not you want to see the Trevi Fountain, is the increased metro and bus tram rates. Right now, 2024, and since like 2010, I think, they've been €1.50. And it's €1.50 for a 100-minute ride. That 100-minute ride includes one metro, but unlimited buses and trams. So if you're going somewhere, like let's just say, I don't know, you're going 10 minutes on the bus, and then you can tap in your card or scan your card or insert your card and get it punched, and then you go somewhere for 10 minutes, and then you hang out there an hour, you can still take that same ticket back, as long as it's within the same 100-minute period. So they're really good for like, going to the grocery store or something like that. It's not great if you're going to spend the whole day out, but if you're just going to make a small trip, you can use one, and it's good for technically 2 trips. They're going to change it to €2, and it's just kind of causing some friction. Just very briefly, it doesn't really affect you travelers too much, but it is a pretty big jump for people who live in Rome. It is there's basically people who don't make that much money. Paying that extra 50 cents is huge. It's kind of like, that's a whole lot of money. All of a sudden I have to pay per day, per ticket. Because now instead of paying €3 a day, let's just say a ticket to work and a ticket back, you're now spending €4 a day. So it kind of does add up. You're talking extra $30 a month if you're not doing a monthly card. And even that's part of an issue too, because the monthly card's like, what is that, classic? I always think of, is it Terry Goodman, the writer, who has the good boots theory? The good, like, basically it's like, it's more investment to purchase really good boots because it lasts 5 years. But when you don't have money, you have to buy the cheap boots, and you have to replace them every year. But after 5 years, you end up spending more money on 5 pairs of cheap boots than on one. And I think it's the same thing with these cards. Like, you don't have money necessarily to put $35 towards a monthly ticket, or I think it's $220 towards a yearly ticket. So you have to do the daily ticket, and so it's causing a lot of pushback.
It's more of a burden on the people with less money.
Exactly. And so I think it's the transportation union has asked or put forward an idea that perhaps it's €2.50 or €2.20, but only for people who don't live in Rome. So people who live in Rome still get the ticket price at $1.50. If you don't live in Rome, you have to pay $2.20, $2.50. And that's just solved with, show us your ID, show us your show us something with your address on it. Which is, again, more difficult than it sounds, because a lot of people, even Italians living in Rome, might have their actual physical address, like their residence address might be a smaller town, like where their parents live or something like that. So that's caused a lot of questionable, decisions as well.
Plus, I feel like there might be, like in any big city, people who don't have an official residence in Rome, like immigrants or people experiencing homelessness who very much do physically live in the city, but if they can't prove that their address is in the city, then they're going to get hurt by this. Right.
And I think that seems like one of the biggest takeaways is that, and actually on that note, is one thing they have done is made the yearly price cheaper by I think like €10 or something like that. And the monthly price is unchanged. We've talked about this before. If you're going to Rome for basically more than a week, it's not a bad idea to get the month ticket. I think it's €35. But the weekly ticket is like 20 something euros, and that's going up in price. It's going from like 17 to 24 or something like that for unlimited rides in a week. But for 35, I think it is, you have unlimited rides within a month, or not a month, within the month that you purchase that card. So if you arrive July 15th and you get the monthly thing, that's only good to the end of July. It's not good for 30 days or something. But it's also not a bad idea if you are going to Italy and you're going to start in Rome, go somewhere else and come back to Rome. If you have the money, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and get a monthly ticket.
Do you know anything about the Roma Pass?
I do, and that's actually it's like we have you'd think we scripted this. We did not. That is great work.
I just keep seeing it advertised on all the sites where I've been looking up the Jubilee.
That is because, and we'll have a link to it in the description. With any luck, we'll have an affiliate link if you want to support us, but I'm definitely just throw the regular link in there. It is a pass that it's quite pricey. It's like 50 to 70 euros. Depending on how many days, or it can go up more than that, but I think it's 24, 48, and 72 hours. And essentially it gives you free entry to like the Colosseum, the Vatican museums, like the Foro Italico, the Italian Forum, Roman Forum, a handful of other sites, as well as free transportation on the buses, the metros, the trams. So it's a really good deal if you know you're going to be going around a lot. you're going to be there for a short length of time, and you want to see absolutely everything. They are like it's not a third party.
It's by the city of
It's
Rome.
by the city of Rome. So there's not a fear of like, oh, is this some weird like I don't know, enterprising individual? No, it's by the city of Rome. It's just to sort of facilitate a slightly cheaper way of seeing all the because essentially some of those tickets, I think it's like something like $15-$20 to see the Vatican Museum, somewhere in there. I think it's like
remember.
14 to see the
I
Colosseum.
think we went on a free day, so I don't know.
No, we paid for that. We went on a
Did
free
we?
day to Colosseum. Yeah.
Oh, dang. Look at us showing
I
out
know.
money for culture.
Look at us go. We actually went at night though, because we did, I think Friday and Saturday night they do the late nights. They close at 10 instead of, I think, at 7.
Highly recommend. That was very cool.
It's cool because they leave the garden area open as well, so you can kind of be outside, and it's really just like I don't know. It's very, very much feels like transported to the past kind of feeling. But yeah, no, the Roma Pass is a great option. 24, 48, 72 hours, I think, is all it offers. It can be a bit of a, if you're a family of 4, you have to get 4 of them. You're looking at a couple $100 or euros, and it can be a bit of a, an investment. But if you think you're going to be hitting the ground running and just constantly seeing sights and things, it's a great investment, I think.
I think if you can afford it, it makes it less of a hassle. Like if you know you have entry already to these places, I feel like, especially if you're a family, there's usually one parent who's in charge of like the passports and the tickets and the this and the that, and the other parent's in charge of the children.
Right, yeah.
So I think it would help, especially if you're a group or just somebody who's like, I just want to not think about it. I know I have entry to these things. I know I can get on a bus. I know I can get on a train. Seems easier if you can afford it.
It definitely seems easier. Yeah, it seems. I mean, I think with those monthly pass, yearly pass, those things, you don't have to tap when you get on the bus or anything like that, which makes it even easier.
Really?
Because I don't think so. I think it's just once it's valid, it's valid. It's sort of like our monthly ones.
Yeah.
They don't check. They only check to see if it's valid. They don't check if you've tapped it recently. So that being said, if you don't have those, you will have to scan them when you are on the bus or train or tram. Bringing us to our next point on that transportation thing. Since I'm on that track, I'm trying to find a pun there. I kind of got through the track. Yeah. Okay. Cool. One of the things that has been happening for the last 3 decades is Metro Line C. Rome has 2.
Meaning the construction has been happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have, I think, 6 or 7 stops already kind of outside of Rome. But one of the plans for Metro Line C was always to run it underneath sort of the historic center of Rome. Because if you look at a metro map, there are no metro lines basically running anywhere around the historic center. It's kind of like you can get one to the Vatican, you can get one to the Colosseum, but if you want to go to the Pantheon, you have to take a bus. If you want to go to Piazza Navona or something like that, you have to take a bus. If you want to go to Trastevere, you have to take a bus. So there's no like train, or there's no metro system there. In 2025, I think the end of 2024, they're going to unveil a metro stop near like a Villa Celimontana, which is kind of like southeast of the Colosseum. And then in early 2025, they're going to unveil a stop next to the Colosseum on Metro Line C, which is going to give the Colosseum 2 stops basically. And it's interesting because right now the one they have is like right across the street from the Colosseum. It's probably one of the most beautiful exits of any metro stop, because you come out and it's just this giant towering Colosseum in front of you. But they're going to continue this, and I mentioned it is because while it's going to be under construction throughout all of 2025, I mean, some of these stops won't open till like 2034, 2035. So do not expect any extra transportation when you come for the Jubilee this year. Maybe there'll be a special one in like 2040, and you can expect one there. Additionally, and probably not as important depending, but they are doing a lot of other, like they're renovating the tram network, because some of the trams are like from the 50s, I feel like, maybe the 60s.
Are they replacing all the trams?
I don't know if they're replacing the trams. I think they're replacing a lot of the track.
Okay.
I know that on subway line A, which is the orange line, the one that you and I often take, it's the one that connects like all the other things in town, the Spanish Steps, kind of technically the Trevi Fountain, not really, it's still a walk from the Trevi Fountain, the Vatican, Termini. That one is going to be has been pretty much closed every evening in 2024 because they're replacing almost all the tracks. They're redoing the Spagna stop, which is the Spanish Steps stop. They're redoing one of the other stops as well. I think it's not, if it's not the Trevi Fountain, it might be like Ottaviano or something. Cipro, which is actually on the other line, the blue line. One's A and one's B, and I just remember as blue and orange because it's way easier to remember that way. I think Orange Line is blue though.
I feel like especially because, what is it, the A line, one way goes to Ananina and then the other one goes to Battassini. Mm-hmm. And I feel like those seem like A and B, but they're on the same line.
And then, but I couldn't even tell you where the other one goes. I'm like, because again, we've taken it like 3 times and just only to go to the Coliseum. So that is all to say is there will be some construction still under work, but don't expect those things to be working. They're actually in the middle of like right now, and I don't think it'll be done until end of this year, early next year. If you have been to Rome before, you will know that if you try to walk from the Vatican to the Castel Sant'Angelo, you end up at this highway, sort of right in the middle, strangely. And that's called Piazza Pia, PIA. And they're redoing it to make the highway actually go underneath the piazza and make it now so it's just one unbroken walk from the St. Peter's Basilica all the way to the Castel Sant'Angelo along the river. Which will be really nice, I think.
Yeah, it sounds lovely because if you've been there, you have to, obviously you're walking, you're having a nice day walking away from the Vatican to the Castel Sant'Angelo, and you have to stop for what feels like half an hour for traffic to pass because the little pedestrian walk sign only comes on every so often, and it's a bunch of traffic, and then crowds build up at that intersection. So it's going to be lovely. But we were talking off mic because you kind of mentioned this to me, and I was curious when they started this giant project of putting what exists as it's a major. It's a highway, but is it 4 lane, 2 lane?
I think it's 2 lanes in each direction, so technically 4 lane.
Okay. So what you're saying is they're creating a tunnel underneath it so the highway is going to be underneath the ground, and then pedestrians can just walk freely on top. But when did they start this massive project?
I know, it was like earlier this year, I think.
Like, what? Whose plan was that? That doesn't make any sense.
Especially because they knew the Jubilee was coming for like 10 years.
Plus, anytime you go underground in Rome, you're going to find archaeological stuff that they're going to have to stop and like dig out that one little vase or whatever it is, very delicately.
Well, that was the thing at literally in this area, the Hilton. I want to say, I think it's the Hilton. Started in 2022. They bought up this building and they wanted to turn it into this like 5-star hotel for the Jubilee specifically. And while doing it, they found like Emperor Nero's garden or something like that or Emperor Nero's swimming pool in their garden, something weird. But it basically halted construction while they thanks for discovering this thing that had been we vaguely knew about, but it had basically been hidden for hundreds of years. But that's the thing. It's like this is literally right outside the Vatican walls. So
they're going to find stuff, and the project's going to be halted. Like, why would they plan this 1 year out the start of it?
Not to mention too, part of it runs along the river, so they have to also put a retaining wall in there to prevent moisture. I mean, it is not a 1 year project. It is, but it's also, if you've been there to that area, we were recently, we landed in July and we happened to be walking around there and it's completely blocked off. So it's not like some of the other road projects where they're trying to
do a bit at a time. Exactly.
The entire thing is blocked off and they're doing only that. And then the Piazza Risorgimento. Again, it's one of the things when I'm speaking Italian, I can feel like the word comes in my head easily, and then when I don't, I'm like, oh my God.
Risorgimento?
Yeah. Okay, just making sure. That is essentially it's right outside the city walls and
of the
Vatican. It's kind of where a lot of buses will take you to the Vatican if you're going to the Vatican. It's fairly close to a metro stop, Ottaviano, which is basically the stop for the Vatican. It's also a great sandwich place near there. If you guys like sandwiches.
200 gradi.
200 degrees, 200 gradi.
Awesome sandwiches.
Fantastic sandwiches, yeah. And they're trying to make it so, again, for people who have been there, you might remember it. If you haven't been there, essentially it was a piazza, and then you have to cross a 2-lane or 3-lane road with one direction traffic, like traffic going one way. And then when you crossed it, you're kind of on the outside wall of the Vatican. And what they're doing is closing off that traffic. It seems like it's a permanent change, but they want to make it so once you're at the piazza, again, it's a straight walk all the way to the Vatican without being broken up by cars, motorcycles, things like that. People just flying down the street.
Which again sounds lovely. We're all for like pedestrian areas where it's just walking. However, both of those two places that you're talking about, the Piazza Pia, which is not a piazza, it's a street.
Yeah.
So it's kind of confusingly named.
Well, apparently it used to be a piazza and then turned into a highway.
Okay. So now Piazza Pia, now highway.
Yeah.
And the, what is it? Piazza Risorgimento. So both of those are like massive thoroughfares with very, the Piazza Risorgimento has a very established traffic pattern. It's basically like a traffic circle, but it's not a circle. It's a giant piazza. So I just don't understand like where all that traffic is going to now flow. With Piazza Pia, I get it. They're going under the road. Yeah, underground.
I think with this one, they're just routing it around. I don't know if they're changing the direction of traffic. Because it used to, I don't know how they're going to plan it to pull it off. It looks like they're changing the direction of traffic though. So where it used to be one way, in one side of the piazza and one way the other, they're now making it one way around the piazza. Okay. Which still feels...
I feel like that's a bad plan.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. It's also, they wanted a parking lot underneath it, but that didn't happen because they didn't have enough time.
Why are we digging into Rome, the underground of Rome, without...
A year out? Yeah.
Yes.
And again, this is all to say, like, what I meant, for perspective, this Metro Line C has basically been digging around the Colosseum for 12 years, and they're just now going to come out with a stop there. They're going to Piazza Venezia, which is just in front of the altar of the Fatherland, kind of just down the street from the Colosseum. That, I think, started construction fairly recently. That's not going to be ready for 2034. But a lot of them...
2034?
Yeah.
Is when it will be ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So 10 years from now. And a lot of it, too, is actually, not only that, they have to drop the subway to about 150 meters underground. I think for the other ones are only like 70 meters underground. But basically, one of the subways goes underneath Trajan's Column. And so Trajan's Column is a freestanding column just in Rome. Yeah. And they are terrified that the column might fall over because of all the vibrations.
At least they thought that part through.
And actually, I think one of the... engineers is, or the engineer group that's behind it is Ecuadorian, because they did the plans, or I don't know if they did the Quito, Quito, the city in Ecuador has a metro line running underneath their historic center, and had to do the exact same thing, pulling all the relics out, this and that, preserving it. So Rome wanted to give the project to an engineering team that had already done this.
And they clearly did it successfully.
Yes, I think. Okay. So, but the guy was joking that if if the column falls, he has his passport ready to leave. But there's actually apparently a tube station in London called the Jubilee tube or route, I guess. Okay. And I didn't have enough time to look this up, but they mentioned they use a specific type of dampening and suppressing material on top of it to prevent the vibrations from going up. And they're going to use the exact, basically same technology there to prevent, because it goes under like a lot of palazzos, a lot of the column, a lot of places that are basically bricks just barely held together, no mortar. And they're like, if this falls, we are so screwed. And as we mentioned in the Florence episode, the Florence train station used to be this beautiful, giant, like stone train station. And they renovated it, and they actually moved they moved the station, or they moved the church. I feel like they moved the station. Okay, not the church. A little bit away, because it used to come near the church, like almost to the church, and now it doesn't. Yeah. And it was basically the vibrations from the trains were shaking the foundations of the church. But they had to do another, multi-million euro remodel, putting all these vibration dampeners in the ground, especially for the high-speed trains, because, again, they were like, it's shaking the church every time something goes by.
I have a great idea for another national treasure.
I'm so excited.
Okay, so very
Call
quickly.
Nicolas Cage.
My idea, yeah, I will. I have him on speed dial, of course. So my idea is the church, which is there. I can't remember the name of it.
Santa Maggiore, I think. Or no, that's the other one. Doesn't matter.
Okay, so the church that's there. Who are the people? Not the Illuminati. The
Freemasons?
Dudes. The Freemasons. Thank you.
Oh my God, I don't know.
Okay, so the Freemasons, these are new modern Freemasons.
Okay.
Whenever the train was going through, they put something in so that whenever the train drove by at a certain speed, it vibrated just enough to knock one of the bricks out, so you could find the special whatever it is.
Oh my God, I love it.
But now the train station's been moved, so nobody knows this thing is there, and they have to go underground and create just enough of an earthquake type thing, so that the one little special block falls out of the wall, and they find whatever the treasure is.
As long as they team up with the team from Ocean's 13, where they had the little tunnel diggers and they use the earthquake to shake the building.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that would be super.
But also more female representation.
I like that. I think we can call our agent.
We should call all of these people and just be like,
if you guys
ready?
like this idea, let us know. We will call our agent and say that you're also behind the idea. So that brings us most of the transportation. The costs are rising. Again, if you went to Rome this year, or if you're on Instagram looking at Rome stuff this year, you'll have noticed that a lot of things are covered. That should all be uncovered by 2025.
That's the point.
Yeah, hopefully, God. Like the fountains, the basilicas, the duomos, every statue in Rome, it feels like, has been covered. So they're going to try to basically get it all renovated, all refreshed and looking good. Especially some things like the fountain in front of the Pantheon has been covered, it feels like, for like 2 years. So some of these things have just been covered forever. So those are the biggest things. But I thought one of the interesting things they're putting money into, according to Roberto Gualtieri, who's the mayor of Rome, is there are many ways, obviously, to get to Rome. All roads lead to Rome, as they once said, and they still do, but nobody knows what it means. But they are basically putting funds towards renovating Via Francigena or Francigena, depending on, I guess, how it's supposed to be pronounced. And that is there's the Camino de Santiago, right? Mm-hmm. The pilgrimage in Spain, I think Portugal and Spain, and maybe part of France. But there is a pilgrimage from Canterbury, England, to Rome, and in historic times, it would have continued south into Rome, and at one point you're protected by the Knights of Jerusalem. And you had gone, I think, to Bari, where you'd board a boat, and the boat would take you to Jerusalem for your pilgrimage.
What?
I know. So basically, I think in the 80s, because this road has gone through, this Via Francigena has gone through different like variations over time, over the last 1,400 years, something like that. Different routes specifically, but also just different iterations, like different like who's taking which one. Basically, it was, I think, just the nominal name, like, oh, it's just you're on that route. The Frankish route is what it would have been called. But I think in the 80s, basically there's some desire for like, let's renovate it. Let's do it up. Let's do it properly. Because if you've been on the Camino de Santiago, I have not. But if you have, there are a lot of places you can stay the night, basically. There's a name for them. I think it's actually, we have the Italian, I can't remember the name now. Probably it's not that important, but basically you can spend the night there. Really nice little places. Some of them have food. That's the same thing they're trying to do in Italy. They actually started in the 80s, like I mentioned. I think artists first started like trying to basically on this big plan to essentially paint the route. Mm-hmm. Not like with murals, but like to just identify, this is the route, this is where you're on, with arrows and symbols and things like that. And a number of little, because part of the issue, especially with Italy, is a lot of the pensiones that used to be there have kind of fallen into disuse and disarray. Mm-hmm. So there are now a lot of abbeys, but this route basically goes through, especially when you get into southern Italy, it goes through San Gimignano, it goes through Siena, it goes to Viterbo, it goes to Rome. But you are encouraged to stay at abbeys along the way. But in Kent, because it goes from Canterbury to Kent, it's called champing, where you camp in a church. I'm like, it's wild.
I don't really want to do this.
But and I looked it up. It's essentially like you go from Canterbury, and it's kind of just a really fairly straight line all the way down. You take the ferry at Dover, you go into France, you follow like this highway in France, essentially what it is. Then I think it's Route 70 when you get to Switzerland, and then it's a fairly well-marked route apparently now in Italy. But I think in 2022 they said 20,000 people walked the route from Canterbury to Rome, and they're kind of not 100% encouraging, but like letting it be an option and available, because essentially what you will have is some sort of pilgrim's passport, and that basically gets you one night. Usually, especially in most parts of Italy, it'll give you one night to stay in a bed, if there's a bed available. A lot of them do offer food as well. So it's essentially a way to, revisit this sort of pilgrimage time, which is fascinating. And that kind of ties into the fact that even though Rome and the Vatican are expecting like 30 to 35 million extra people, a lot of them might not be wealthy travelers. A lot of them will be staying at monasteries, they'll be staying at convents, they'll be staying at some sort of religious housing, if you will, and not in like Airbnbs and hotels. So what you are competing with, our dear listener, are not necessarily the pilgrims, but like just sort of slightly wealthier Catholics who want to come for the Jubilee.
Like regular sort of tourists who are also potentially religious, or just tourists who like, I want to walk through the holy door.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, it sounds amazing.
And actually I think it's February 19th, you and I were thinking about doing it, or 12th, February 12th, because it's the Jubilee of the Artists. Yeah. And I think it's like every month there's 2 or 3 different Jubilees specifically. And for wide varying things, like for the youth, for the artists, for the poor, for the stonemasons, for the prisoners, for the for like a bunch of different little like either super specific things or just general things like I don't know, for people over 6 foot. I have no idea. That's probably not one of them, but there's a lot of different jubilees throughout the time. And then if not only, by the way, if you wanted to if the idea of walking is fun to you and you want to do part of it, some people just do the final stretch. They'll go to Viterbo and then spend 6 nights, 5 days walking to Rome. Or they'll start in San Gimignano or Siena and walk down. That takes a little longer. It takes a few weeks. But it seems like a kind of a fascinating way to do it. I'm not sure how long it takes. And I'm also, because I'm curious, like, you know, the pilgrimages were, I think, were great back in the day where you wouldn't have to worry about a visa. And now you have to worry about like, okay, can I walk down there in 90 days? I mean, assume you can, but then it's like, you're going to spend any time there. And then as I mentioned too, a lot of the routes are not that built up. Like people are trying to, but it's much more common to camp and spend the night outside than it is to find a room. Oof. The Camino de Santiago, it's really like it's so structured, it feels like now. Again, I have not walked it, but from what I've read about it, it seems very structured. So it seems like every time you get to another town, there's a lot of places to stay that's fairly cheap, that has food, that has something to drink. This is not the same sort of occasion, but I thought it was kind of cool. They're trying to renovate the idea of these, I don't know, the walk.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, the pilgrimage. And then I think last but not least, for anybody who does want to participate in the Jubilee, I'll throw the link in the description, but you will probably need what is called a pilgrim card. I know. It's a little card. I don't even think it's a physical one. I think it's just going to be on your phone. I think you can get issued a physical one in Rome. But essentially it's a little confusing because I'm not sure they know what it's for. But they say on their website it's for like discounts at like different places, like some restaurants, some transportation, some events. But basically, anytime there's a Jubilee event, if you have the Pilgrim card, you can get into the event. It seems like the way it's worded, you won't be getting. You mentioned earlier all those sort of events or exhibitions. Mm-hmm. It seems like the way it's worded on the Jubilee website is you won't be allowed entry to those exhibitions without the Pilgrim card. So it seems a little confusing, but...
Do you have to pay for it?
No, it is a free card. Good question. It is a totally free card, but basically without it, you can't... It looks like from their website. And again, I keep saying it looks like from their website because when you look at the English page, you get one piece of information, and you look at the Italian page, you get a different piece of information. For those of you, I'll put the link in the description. Like I said, you can switch between the two, and if you have like Google Translate or something, you can just translate it. But they do mention you can't go through the Holy Door without one, which is absolutely hilarious to me. I love the change over the last couple hundred years. Like it used to be, you just walk through, and now it's like, do you have the QR code?
Weird.
Yeah. But if you want to organize like a pilgrimage, either for yourself or for a group, you need these. If you want to take part of any of the events, you need the pilgrim card. And I don't know if it's just their way of tracking how many people are actually participating in the events, or if it's a way of trying to keep things structured and clear. I have no idea. This is Italy, so I don't think they know. I mean, technically it's the Vatican, but
someone just said, hey, we should do this. And everybody's like, all right, sure.
That sounds like a good
plan.
How
does it work? I don't know. We'll just do it.
I think that's exactly what happened. There's a room there somewhere where people clapping themselves on the back. And I think that's everything. Like, Darcy's obviously stick around for the next episode where Darcy's going to give us some history on the Jubilee. But yeah, this was all to answer your question of should you go? And if I can boil it down into a too long, didn't really listen. You absolutely recommend still going. If you're going to go to Italy, it might be slightly more crowded than it would have been like this year or 2026. Because I imagine there's going to be a lot of people who, specifically Catholics, who might have like, oh, we should go to Rome. Oh, well, you know what, let's wait, just to the Jubilee. Might as well make it one big Italy trip rather than just, going to Rome in 2022 or something like that. In my head, there's people who, going to go a couple times a year. I don't know. My point is, that just sounds like garbled. No, my point is, though, it's like if I feel like there's a lot of people who might be going to Italy next year who didn't get the chance to go during COVID or who've been planning on like, let's have one big trip and just go see all of Italy. So Italy might be more crowded. Things like Florence might be, Siena, Bologna, things like that. I doubt you're going to get that crowded in the south. Just because it already, maybe in the summer, but like, I don't know. There's not a lot of, there's a lot of like Catholicism in the Amalfi Coast or not. There's a ton of saints, but I don't know if it's really, they're just sort of, I don't know. they just seem accidentally Catholic in the South, not like intentionally so. So yeah, no, it really shouldn't affect your trip. If you were planning on coming in 2025 and you didn't realize the Jubilee was happening, it's not a bad idea to come, only because this is probably going to be the first time in a long time that almost all, if not all, the monuments, the fountains, the statues will all be uncovered. They'll all be freshly restored and renovated. They're going to have redone, like I mentioned, some of the metro stops. Everything's going to be running. It's supposed to be like everyone's like locked in for the entire year of 2025. Like they want things running on time. They want things running smoothly. They want extra buses. They want extra tram routes. They want extra stops. They want like at least for transportation. They also, I think, the mayor Gualtieri, he's and I couldn't find where, but he's talking about they've put in new bike paths to some of the bigger locations because right now biking in Rome is absolutely a death wish. So it kind of seems like they're really trying to make it. They're trying to use this as an excuse to just sort of renovate the city. And then there are, like I said, some downsides. You might have to pay to see the Trevi Fountain. You might have to pay more for transportation. Even that whole thing was again, as a very brief aside for anybody who is interested, they have to, I think, promise 22 million euros to ATAC over 2025 to 2027. Otherwise, the contract won't be renewed. And they're afraid that essentially, like, they can't make it with 150. So they either have to raise the price for some people, for most people, or figure out more. Because I think they petitioned the, I think it was like 20, or they're 22 million short, might be what it is. Because they petitioned the Meloni government for transportation funds, because Rome has been trying to make their public transportation system free, and they were denied the funds. So now they have to come up with paying more, because Rome, interestingly, is basically it's has the cheapest transportation in every major city of every major city in Europe. Paris and Barcelona, Madrid, England, they all cost more for a ride on the thing, which is interesting, because I think every time we go traveling, I always think, I'm like, this is such a scam. You're charging me like €4 to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. I'm from Rome. Not really, but nearish somewhat. I'm closer to Rome.
That's fascinating. I wondered why it was suddenly more expensive, because I'd heard that they were trying to make it free, and I just assumed the government was being greedy, and they were like, nope, we're going to ask you for money. That makes sense.
And that's the thing. Gualtieri, he's quite like pro lifting up the people at the bottom, if that makes sense. Like, sort of like trying to create like everybody kind of gets the same sort of way of or the same ease, because it essentially is a system that like people who drive everywhere in Rome will not benefit, but the people who have to take the public transportation will benefit. And if it's free, I mean, that's a huge savings. We're talking like 70, 80 euros a month of savings. That's 800, 900 euros a year. That's a pretty major savings for people, especially if less so if you have like the yearly pass and stuff. But unfortunately, it's like basically they can't. It needs to be subsidized. Like the yearly pass, I think, is already subsidized by the Roman government, and they need to subsidize the whole thing. Otherwise, like we can't do it, and there's no easy way to do it. Unfortunately, so it's like the things like the Jubilee are just going to be like, they're like, all right, well, we have one opportunity to make a ton of money, and hopefully that is enough to subsidize for the next 2 years, and then we'll figure it out in 2027. What we want to do. But yeah, if you're thinking about coming in Rome, if you're thinking about coming in 2025 to Italy. It's really not a bad option. I think Rome's going to be probably the best it has ever looked in the last.
It's going to be crowded.
Oh yeah,
but really cool.
It's going to be crowded. It might be more expensive, like I said, just for like Airbnbs and hotels and stuff. But you aren't going to be competing by and large with a lot of the pilgrims. These are typically people who don't have very much money, who are staying for free in monasteries or I was going to say cathedrals, that'd be nice, or convents or something like that, who potentially even walked to Rome, or flew. I think Ryanair is actually doing a lot of cheap flights to Ciampano.
Really?
Yeah, they're like the bunch of these like low cost carriers are doing more flights. They're trying to do Delta. My brother has very excitedly texted me saying that Delta now has a direct flight from St. Paul, Minneapolis, from Atlanta. They've I 2 new flights from Atlanta a week. 3 new flights from Detroit a week, all to Rome without stops, nonstop. So I think even airlines are taking notice and like, oh, if we can get more people there, it would be helpful. And I think even actually on that note is the Leonardo Express, the fast train from the airport, has added 2 extra leave times to their itinerary. It used to stop, I think, at 10:45, give or take 10:48, something weird.
At night?
At night.
Okay.
That was the last train out of the airport, so it made late night flights impossible, basically. But now I think they've added an 11:30 and a 12:05. So if you get in late or later than 10:30, you can now actually still get a chance to get this fast train from the airport, not have to spend like $60 in a cab. So yeah, with all that being said, I think that's everything. That's the Jubilee, what you need to know.
That was pretty information packed.
Yeah, and I think the last note is other cities, like I mentioned, might be slightly more packed just simply because people who came here for the Jubilee might also want to go visit Florence while they're there. But if your trip is like, we've already seen Rome 4 times, we don't need to go back again, we just want to go to Como, we want to go to Milan, Venice, Naples, Amalfi Coast, the Cilento, then you're not going to have a problem. It's going to be the exact same experience. Slightly overcrowded, but not like dangerously so, I think.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and that's everything.
Okay, I'm excited to talk about the history.
Yes,
of all
please
this
stick
stuff.
around. We want to hear about the history and why, when, and how we started being so jubilant. Because it is a celebration. Apparently, at one point in the last Jubilee, 2015, a famous Napolitano pizza maker made a special pizza for the Pope and jumped over a barricade with the pizza in hand to deliver it to the Pope in his Pope mobile. And the Pope took it without, checking to see if it was a bomb first.
Was this person not stopped?
No, I don't think so.
What?
Or he was somehow waved through. I mean, they said he's a famous pizza maker, so I don't know if everyone's like,
The Pope's like, no, I follow him on Instagram.
yeah, that's Paolo. Like, everyone knows Paolo.
He's so crazy.
Yeah, or if it was just, I mean, he's Napolitano as well, so it's like, there's definitely a...
Did you find out what was on this pizza?
No, it just said he made a special pizza for the Pope. And I'm like, did only the Pope see it? Like, what is this?
What are the ingredients in this pizza? I need to
right?
know.
So there's apparently, this is all to underline the point, what I read was to underline the point that it is a time of celebration. It's not necessarily supposed to be a time of like a clamp down on like security measures and like making life miserable for everybody. It is supposed to be like, no, we're all out having fun and celebrating. There's always the pilgrimage and a thing to walk and blah, 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 blah. So it seems like a lot of fun.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. If you visit, let us know how it is. Drop us a comment at onlybagpodcast@gmail.com or onlybagpodcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear about it. And
Absolutely.
I think that's everything. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Stick around for Darcy. Or I'll stick around for Darcy. You guys can listen whenever you like to. When are you going to put this out on Wednesday as well?
I don't know.
So you might not even hear this till Thursday. Possibly Friday. Without further ado, thank you all so much for listening. We really appreciate it. If you enjoy this, please leave us a review and follow us. It would mean the world to us.
It would. Thank you so much.
And we'll talk to you next time. Or Darcy will talk to you next time.
Talk to you next time.